Alexei Nikolaevich was the only son of the last Russian emperor, Nicholas II, and his wife, the Empress Consort Alexandra. As the only son of the emperor, Alexei was the Tsarevich, or crown prince and heir to the imperial throne of Russia. Following the murder of the Russian imperial family, the House of Romanov at the hands of a firing squad in the basement of Ipatyev's house in Ekaterinburg on the night of the 16th to the 17th of July 1918, it is believed that there were at least 81 impostors who posed as the Tsarevich Alexei. However, all of them would ultimately be revealed to be impostors, as the skeletal remains of the imperial family were recovered and identified through DNA testing in the 1990s and 2000s. Alexei Nikolaevich was widely known to have suffered from haemophilia, an inherited genetic disorder that impairs the body's ability to make blood clots, a process needed to stop bleeding. Alexei's mother Alexandra was a carrier of this disease, inheriting it from her grandmother, Queen Victoria. Alexei's illness was known to have been particularly severe. For Alexei, even the most insignificant bruises caused internal bleeding, and on one occasion a bleeding nose once almost ended his life. Due to his illness, Alexei's joints ached, and at times, he couldn't walk by himself. Because of this, an officer was assigned to Alexei who was responsible for carrying him around and riding with him. Following his death, Alexei attracted a great deal of attention from impostors for a wide variety of reasons. At the age of just 13 at the time of his murder, Alexei, like the two youngest of his four sisters, the Grand Duchesses Maria and Anastasia, was still a teenager when he died, providing potential impostors with an excuse for any dissimilarities between themselves and their legitimate Romanov targets because of the supposed changes in physical appearance between adolescence and adulthood. In the last of our videos exploring the lives and motivations of the numerous impostors who claim to be the Tsarevich Alexei, we turn our attention to one of the most bizarre and tragic cases to come to light, obscured behind a cloud of secrecy, misinformation, and erratic behavior. This is a story of defection, treason, and deception mired in the political tensions of the Cold War during the 1960s, in which a deadly spy game descended into the realms of madness and a far-fetched Romanov fantasy. This is the story of Michael Goleniewski, or perhaps, secret agent Alexei Nikolaevich Romanov. Michael Goleniewski was born Michał Franciszek Goleniewski in 1922 in the city of Tsarevich, which was then part of the Second Polish Republic, but now belonging to present-day Belarus. Michael's father had been an accountant by profession, and the young Goleniewski moved with his parents to a village near the town of Wolsztyn, where he graduated from secondary school and received a certificate of secondary education. According to Goleniewski, he had allegedly studied for 3 years at the University of Poznan at the Faculty of Law, before transferring to Warsaw and graduating from the University of Warsaw in 1956, receiving a degree in political science. However, there would apparently be no information about Goleniewski's studies in the university archives, casting doubt upon such claims. During the German occupation of Poland, Goleniewski allegedly worked as a courier and later as an accountant in a German office which managed estates confiscated from the Polish population during this period. Goleniewski was fluent in German, and it was believed that he could understand a variety of dialects. However, according to Goleniewski, he had been arrested by the German occupation administration and accused of being a member of an underground anti-fascist organization. At the end of 1944, Goleniewski had fallen ill and was a patient at Wolston Hospital when the Red Army entered the city in January 1945. By the end of the 1940s, Michael Goleniewski faced charges of being a Nazi collaborator. However, the charges would never be proven. In 1945, after the establishment of communist power, Michael Goleniewski joined the Polish Workers' Party, a predecessor institution to the Polish United Workers' Party, which would rule Poland from 1948 to 1989. Goleniewski was employed in the Ministry of Public Security, taking the oath on the 15th of August 1945, and becoming an employee of the Zielona Góra County Office of Public Security. From the 26th of March 1946, Goleniewski worked his way through the ranks of the County Public Security Directorate in Legionowo, holding titles such as quartermaster, assistant, senior assistant, and deputy head of the department until he served as chief from the 1st of May 1947 to the 31st of May 1948. Following this, he would be transferred to the Poznan Office of Public Security, where he held the post of head of the city department from the 1st of June 1948, before becoming head of the counterintelligence department on the 15th of December that year. It was alleged that Goleniewski, during his time in Poznan, managed to expose several former Gestapo agents who allegedly held high-ranking government positions in the Polish People's Republic. Following this, Goleniewski was transferred to Gdansk, and likewise served as the head of the counterintelligence department there from the 1st of June 1950 until the 31st of May 1953. During his tenure in that city, he took part in the disclosure of espionage networks created by Polish anti-communist organizations. As the 1950s progressed, Michael Goleniewski continued his career as a security officer in Warsaw, becoming the head of the 9th Department of the Directorate of the Ministry of Public Security on the 1st of June 1953, which focused on analytics and information. As head of the 9th Department, Goleniewski led the operation of the Polish counterintelligence to intercept one of the two factions of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists at the OUNM wing, which was headed by Andriy Melnik, who had been covertly supported by the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, following the Second World War. On the 15th of March 1955, Goleniewski was appointed as the Deputy Director of the Second Directorate of the Public Security Committee of the Polish People's Republic, focusing on counterintelligence, and on the 14th of December of the same year he was transferred to the post of Deputy Head of the Main Information Directorate under the Ministry of National Defense. In 1956, after political reforms which saw the end of the Stalinist era in Poland, the Ministry of Public Security was placed under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Polish People's Republic, and Goleniewski became an employee of the First Directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Before Goleniewski was transferred to the First Directorate, the Party Committee of the Ministry of Internal Affairs considered allegations made against him which accused him of abusing his power and treating subordinates inappropriately during his work in the Second Directorate. Allegedly, Goleniewski had convened late-night meetings in the Second Directorate to which he did not come. The members of the commission who considered Goleniewski's case gave a negative description of him and did not recommend him for further work in the security agencies. Nevertheless, the Collegium of the Ministry of Internal Affairs considered the accusations unfounded and decided to transfer him to intelligence. On the 1st of February 1957, Goleniewski was appointed head of the 6th Scientific and Technical Department of the 1st Directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs with the rank of lieutenant colonel. Goleniewski's army service had saw him elevated from non-commissioned to commissioned officer status, and the rank of lieutenant colonel would be the highest rank he would obtain in the military. Holding a leadership position, Goleniewski personally participated in various intelligence missions, going abroad under the guise of a journalist from the Polish press agency named Roman Tarnowski. In reports to his superiors, Goleniewski signed his name as Roman or Stefan. Goleniewski's appointment to the post of head of the Scientific and Technical Department could also be related to his experience in Gdansk, where smugglers during the Cold War delivered various goods and transmitted secret information. The 6th Department worked with information related to the latest achievements in the field of military hardware, and Goleniewski may have acquired the appropriate skills and abilities to allow him to receive information about modern technologies. However, one of Goleniewski's subordinates claimed that under his leadership, the work in the 6th Department stalled and froze, and what work was carried out carelessly. At the same time that Goleniewski was head of the 6th Department, it was believed he was also spying on Polish intelligence operations for the Soviet Union. During his stay in Switzerland, which lasted from March the 24th to April the 3rd, 1958, Goleniewski sent a package to the American ambassador in Bern, Henry J. Taylor, on April the 1st. Taylor received a package that included 2 letters addressed to Taylor and Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, Director J. Edgar Hoover offering his services to the CIA as an agent, and a series of documents with information about the activities of the Eastern Bloc intelligence services in Europe. The letter was signed by the pseudonym Sniper, indicating that the author is a high-ranking intelligence officer of one of the states of the Warsaw Pact organization, without specifying a specific country. According to CIA officer Tenant Bagley, the Americans at first suspected a possible Soviet provocation, and thus studied the entire parcel carefully, right down to the paper on which it was written, until they were convinced that it was not a fake and that the letter was indeed sent from Polish intelligence. Goleniewski's offer of cooperation was accepted, and the signal to confirm this was the publication of an advertisement in the newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. So some correspondence began between Sniper, or Goleniewski, and the CIA. Letters from Goleniewski were sent to a specific address in West Berlin, and later communication began to be maintained through the so-called dead mailboxes in Warsaw. The sender of all CIA communications signed his name as Hoover, and as a result, Goleniewski was convinced that he was in personal correspondence with J. Edgar Hoover and that the information he offered was also sent to the FBI. Soon after, the CIA, after analyzing the contents of Goleniewski's messages, concluded that their unknown informant who identified himself only as Sniper worked for the Polish Special Services. By early 1959, Goleniewski had become a triple agent, anonymously sending Polish and Soviet secrets addressed to the FBI by letter. He insisted on communicating directly with the FBI, in the knowledge that all other agencies had been penetrated by Soviet bloc intelligence. Neither Goleniewski or the FBI were aware that the CIA had been analyzing the contents of Goleniewski's messages. In total, from April 1958 to December 1960, Goleniewski sent 14 parcels with letters and confidential information, and only after the second or third parcel did the Americans discard all doubts about possible provocations and were convinced of the authenticity of the transmitted data. All letters were written in German, and each letter contained several sections devoted to specific issues and included code names and data on Soviet intelligence operations. They were given around 5,800 documents of the Polish Special Services and around 160 documents of the Soviet Special Services, hidden on 95 microforms. According to Goleniewski, he handed microforms over to the Americans which contained classified information while maintaining his anonymity and not disclosing all his personal information. Goleniewski also provided around 60 typewritten documents containing information on Soviet reconnaissance satellites, data on employees of the Special Services of the Polish People's Republic and East Germany in Western Europe and the United States, and information on military, economic, political, and scientific issues. The Americans were also informed about the wiretapping of the U.S. Embassy in Warsaw and the apartments of American diplomats in Poland. Goleniewski would be known by several different code names. In the U.S., the CIA gave him the code name Sniper, while in the UK, the MI5 gave him the code name Lavinia. In April 1959, the CIA informed the MI5 that Sniper, whose real name was still unknown at this point, had said the Polish security service had a British informant inside the Royal Navy. This person was later found to be Harry Houghton, who was a member of the Portland spy ring. As well as this, the CIA also told the MI5 that Goleniewski had received top-secret documents originating from a Soviet mole inside the MI6. The mole himself, who turned out to be the double agent George Blake, heard the news that the CIA had a top-level informant in Poland and sent word back to the KGB, who passed it to the Polish security service. After hearing Blake's information from the KGB, Goleniewski decided to make his escape. As well as drawing attention to the actions of Houghton and Blake, Goleniewski also provided information that led to the arrest of American diplomat Erwin C. Skarbek, who had passed information to the Polish Ministry of Public Security, along with the arrest of Swedish Air Force officer Stig Wennerström, who was engaging in espionage activities on behalf of the Soviet Union, and also the arrest of German spies Heinz Felf and Hans Clemens, who passed information to the KGB. Goleniewski also claimed that there was a Soviet-controlled organization of former Nazis that was active in post-war West Germany. It is not known for certain what exactly made Goleniewski cooperate with the American authorities, but according to his first wife Anna and her daughter Galina, Goleniewski did this for ideological reasons. In an interview with The Guardian newspaper, author Tim Tate, who wrote a 2021 book on Goleniewski, titled The Spy Who Was Left Out in the Cold, claimed that unlike most defectors to the West, who primarily wanted a better life outside the Soviet bloc, Goleniewski was ideologically motivated. According to Tate, Goleniewski had
this Damascene conversion, this revelatory experience where he realized that the communist system was wrong, and that he needed, as a Polish intelligence officer working simultaneously for the KGB, to do everything he could to counter it, and to start working for the West and democracy.
However, according to a different version of events, Goleniewski decided to flee west to live with his mistress Ingrid Kampf, who worked as a secretary at a Berlin secondary school. When Goleniewski had first met Kampf, he was in his guise as a journalist for the Polish press agency, and fabricated a story that he was a reserve officer during the Second World War and was a member of the Polish partisan underground. Michael Goleniewski was still married to his first wife Anna when he met Ingrid Kampf. However, his first marriage would not be a happy one. Anna suffered from mental health issues which may have been the result of her experiences during the Second World War, where she was subjected to forced labor in Germany. For Goleniewski, family life became unbearable, and he wrote in reports to his superiors about his wife's situation, but all attempts at medical intervention were unsuccessful, and in 1958 Anna was diagnosed with delusional schizophrenia. Michael Goleniewski went to live with his mother on the advice of a doctor, although he would claim that his wife kicked him out of the house. Back in January 1957, Anna decided to leave for the Soviet Union, declaring her intention to take her daughter Galina with her, and according to Goleniewski, the divorce was never formalized. For a long time, Michael Goleniewski did not inform his superiors about his relationship with Ingrid Kampf. In early 1959, the deputy head of the First Directorate, Colonel Henryk Sokolyak, observed that Goleniewski traveled to East Germany more frequently. However, a field check conducted in March 1960 did not reveal anything suspicious. In September 1960, the Ministry of Internal Affairs would finally learn about Goleniewski's relationship with Kampf, after which it demanded an explanation and prohibited Goleniewski from traveling abroad. In October 1960, Goleniewski took legal action to try and obtain a divorce from his first wife and marry his new partner, and in November he sent a one-page explanatory note to the Directorate, convinced of the devotion of Ingrid Kampf to the state and social system of East Germany and expressing his intention to marry his new partner. However, since the divorce from his first wife was a legally complicated process, and Goleniewski remained an active career employee of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Polish People's Republic, even the fact that Kampf was a civilian friendly to the East German regime was not enough to convince the First Directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Polish People's Republic to lift the ban on Goleniewski traveling abroad for further meetings with Kampf. Michael Goleniewski was determined to have his travel ban removed and was willing to go to any lengths to achieve this aim, even if it risked dismissal from the ministry altogether. On the 22nd of December, Goleniewski requested permission to travel to Berlin and stay there from the 26th of December 1960 to the 3rd of January 1961. He claimed that the purpose of this trip was to explain himself to Ingrid Kampf in Berlin and break up with her. The deputy head of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Polish People's Republic, Mieczysław Moczar, met with Goleniewski regarding this matter before giving him the go-ahead for the trip. The date of return was supposedly postponed to the 8th of January 1961. Kampf was convinced that neither she nor Goleniewski would be able to live in peace under communist rule and insisted that the pair flee to the west as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Almost a month earlier, on the 1st of December, in East Berlin, Goleniewski had met with the Berlin resident of Polish intelligence, Colonel Michalski, and asked him for a sum of about 13,000 West German marks and 1,100 British pounds by the 5th of January 1961. Since such amounts were about 3 times higher than normal expenses, a headquarters meeting was required. On the evening of the 25th of December, Michael Goleniewski arrived by train in Berlin on a passport in the name of Roman Kowalski. On the evening of the 3rd of January 1961, at 9 p.m., Goleniewski arrived at the headquarters and received the marks from Colonel Michalski, before arriving at the home of Ingrid Kampf's family at 9:50 p.m. The Kampf family home was located roughly 111 meters from the border between the eastern and western sectors. At that time, the construction of the Berlin Wall, which separated the two sectors, was still more than 7 months away from being constructed. At 11 minutes past midnight on the morning of the 4th of January 1961, Ingrid Kampf and Michael Goleniewski left the house, taking only their bags with them. Following this, Goleniewski called the U.S. consulate from a pay phone, and half an hour later they took a taxi to the consulate, where they were met by CIA officers led by Resident David Murphy. However, Goleniewski would be unpleasantly surprised by the cold reception he would receive at the consulate, particularly since he was expecting a meeting with FBI agents. Although Goleniewski was perfectly aware of the distinction between the activities of the CIA and the FBI, the presence of the name Hoover on corresponding documentation gave Goleniewski the impression that he had been negotiating directly with J. Edgar Hoover and the leadership of the FBI. Because of this, he believed that the FBI had already launched an investigation against the individuals he informed them about who had collaborated with Soviet intelligence. Goleniewski introduced himself to the CIA using his real name and explained to them the circumstances that led to this meeting. Following this, Kampf and Goleniewski arrived at the U.S. Air Force Base in Wiesbaden on the 5th of January 1961, where CIA agent Homer E. Roman, or Howard Roman, was waiting for them. On the night of January the 11th to January the 12th, 1961, the pair accompanied Roman on a U.S. military plane which flew to Andrews Air Force Base, adjacent to Camp Springs, Maryland. After landing in Maryland, they were transferred to a CIA station at Ashford Farm on the 16th of January, where Goleniewski would be interrogated for several months. At the time of his interrogation, Goleniewski kept silent about his family problems and how they contributed to his decision to defect to the West. On the 16th of September 1961, Goleniewski entered into an agreement with the CIA, according to which he was provided with financial support, security of residence and medical assistance from the Americans for a year. On the 5th of March 1962, Michael Goleniewski and Ingrid Kampf moved to New York with the help of the CIA, and on the 16th of June that year, Goleniewski's agreement with the CIA was extended for another year. On the 7th of January 1963, Goleniewski was officially granted political asylum in the United States, beginning a process which would see him eventually being granted American citizenship. Fearing that Polish intelligence would attempt to eliminate him as a traitor, Goleniewski was issued a firearm in 1963. As it turned out, Polish intelligence had learned of Goleniewski's disappearance by the 6th of January 1961, only a day after his arrival at Wiesbaden. The East German Ministry of State Security, otherwise known as the Stasi, had been observing Goleniewski in Berlin for a period of time prior to his defection. After his disappearance, they searched Kampf's family home, where her parents still resided, and discovered that Ingrid had taken all of her valuables with her, but Goleniewski's briefcase, which contained his personal belongings, remained there. On the 12th of January 1961, Polish intelligence searched Goleniewski's office in Poland and found in his safe a list of all the cases handled by the 6th Department, along with the names of the employees who investigated these cases. On the 13th of January 1961, all Polish agents in Berlin were informed of the disappearance of Michael Goleniewski, and on the 16th of January, Goleniewski was officially charged with desertion by the prosecutor's office. On the 19th of January 1961, the East German Stasi joined the investigation, and Erich Mielke, the East German Minister for State Security, handed over to Polish intelligence the results of their preliminary investigation against Goleniewski and Kampf. On the 23rd of January, Goleniewski was suspended from duty by order of the Minister of Internal Affairs of the People's Republic of Poland. By the 24th of January, the prosecutor's office had already formed solid grounds for accusing Goleniewski of high treason. Even the possibility that Ingrid Kampf was either a CIA or MI6 agent was seriously considered, although the Stasi could not find any evidence of this. On the 7th of April 1961, the Warsaw prosecutor's office drew up an indictment against Michael Goleniewski, and the trial passed relatively quickly. Several witnesses were questioned, most of whom worked in the First Directorate of the Polish Ministry of Internal Affairs. On the 18th of April 1961, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Goleniewski was sentenced to death in absentia and deprived of all state and civil rights, awards, and privileges. All Goleniewski's property was expropriated by the state and he was officially dismissed from service on the 24th of May. Despite the death sentence which was handed down to Goleniewski in absentia, this could not compensate for the colossal damage caused to Polish intelligence by his betrayal. The preliminary list of information that Goleniewski could give to Western intelligence services turned out to be extremely large. It included the structure and personnel of the Ministry of Public Security, the Committee of Public Security, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the People's Republic of Poland. Later, it included information of an economic nature, including information about key industrial enterprises of the Polish People's Republic. The political damage caused by the flight of the lieutenant colonel to the west could not be assessed. Following his defection to the west, Goleniewski made the most sensational of his claims, stating that Michael Goleniewski was not his real name and merely a pseudonym to disguise what he described as his true identity, that of the Tsarevich Alexei Nikolaevich Romanov. Goleniewski claimed that the entire execution of the imperial family, which occurred on the night of the 16th of July 1918, was completely fictional. According to Goleniewski, Yakov Yurovsky allegedly helped the Russian imperial family escape from Ekaterinburg back in 1917, after which they fled to Turkey, and from there, through Greece and Austria en route to Poland. Goleniewski claimed that it took several months for the imperial family to reach Poland, where they settled in Warsaw. Nicholas II supposedly shaved off his beard, and this was apparently enough to make him completely unrecognizable, even though he had spent a period of his early adulthood without one. Goleniewski further claimed that Nicholas II changed his name to Raymond Turinsky in 1924, and his wife, the Empress Consort Alexandra, changed hers to Marie Kaminsky. The Tsarevich and heir Alexei Nikolaevich was obviously renamed Michael Goleniewski, and the family relocated to Poznan, closer to the border with Germany. Goleniewski claimed that Nicholas II lived to be 84 years of age, passing away in 1952 somewhere near Poznan, while the Empress Consort Alexandra had died back in 1924. As well as this, he also claimed that the Grand Duchesses Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia were still alive in the 1960s. Goleniewski, posing as Alexei, claimed that he was treated up until 1928 for the effects of both haemophilia and malaria. He, or Alexei, had supposedly traveled to the United States along with Anastasia to withdraw money from a bank account in Detroit, and Anastasia refused to return to Poland. The elder two sisters, Olga and Tatiana, had apparently relocated to Germany, while Goleniewski, or Alexei, had remained in Poznan with Maria and their father. Michael Goleniewski, in his pretensions as Alexei, would further claim that he had been involved since 1930 in an anti-communist movement called the All-Russian Anti-Bolshevik Underground, which he claimed had been established by his father, or Nicholas II, and leading an anti-communist struggle. In 1944, the family allegedly tried to flee to Portugal as the Red Army approached, but Goleniewski, or Alexei, claims he had been poisoned, and the escape plans failed as a result. In 1945, he joined the ranks of the Polish army on the instructions of the underground, and then moved into counterintelligence. Moving up the career ladder, Alexei gained access to secret information including lists of KGB agents in the West, as well as methods of their training and recruitment. After fleeing to the United States, Goleniewski claimed that Nicholas II had left deposits in several Western banks which amounted to a sum between $400 to $800 million. In January 1964, Goleniewski, posing as Alexei, appealed to the court of Hamburg with demands to recognize his inheritance rights to the property of his deceased parents, stating that in the event of the court's refusal, he would continue to seek recognition of his rights to all bank deposits allegedly left by his parents to the bitter end. However, the court found no grounds for satisfying Goleniewski's claims. The 18-year age difference between Goleniewski and Alexei Nikolaevich was enough to raise suspicion that he was yet another impostor posing as one of the surviving members of the Russian imperial family. In 1964, Alexei would have been turning 60 years of age had he survived, while Goleniewski was turning 42. Goleniewski attempted to explain this away by claiming that the influence of haemophilia had supposedly delayed his growth. However, there is no evidence that Goleniewski had haemophilia. Goleniewski claimed that the haemophilia made him appear younger than he really was, and he had been, in his own words, twice a child. He claimed that his haemophilia had been confirmed by Alexander S. Wiener, who had co-discovered the Rh factor in human blood. However, this claim was never confirmed. Following Goleniewski's claim, Polish intelligence were unable to locate the original documents for the period preceding his service in the Ministry of Public Security and information about his parents. The documents may have been destroyed during the war or destroyed by Polish intelligence or by Goleniewski himself. Allegedly, intelligence officers had gained access to Goleniewski's personal files in 1956 and may have seized and destroyed compromising material. It was also suggested that Goleniewski could have been pretending to be the Tsarevich Alexei in order to carry out a mission for the KGB, with the objective of gaining access to the alleged deposits of the imperial family which were allegedly stored in Western banks. Meanwhile, in the United States, any hope or expectation that the CIA would conduct an investigation to close the question of Michael Goleniewski's identity was curtailed by CIA Director Alan Dulles, who stated in an interview that he did not intend to comment on such a situation either now or in the future. However, Goleniewski claimed that Dulles allegedly discussed the matter with him and said that if he had a beard, he would be indistinguishable from Nicholas II. On the 18th of October 1963, Life magazine published an article in which Eugenia Smith declared that she was the surviving Grand Duchess Anastasia. More than 2 months later, on the 28th of December, Goleniewski called Smith and arranged a meeting that took place 3 days later. During this meeting, Smith's bogus Anastasia listened to the story of Goleniewski's bogus Alexei and acknowledged him as her brother, and the pair would meet several times again. However, Smith would later claim that she was the only survivor from the Russian imperial family, which would instigate a public quarrel between herself and Goleniewski. In 1964, the U.S. House of Representatives Subcommittee on Immigration demanded that the CIA summon Goleniewski to testify about his origins, but this was refused. By that time, he had twice been summoned to the Senate subcommittee for questioning about Soviet agents, but Goleniewski never appeared. After several postponements, the Senate eventually decided that it would not interrogate Goleniewski, and witnesses from the State Department were questioned instead. Following this, the authenticity and accuracy of the information contained in Goleniewski's testimony about the exposed Soviet agents was confirmed. Explaining why Goleniewski was not questioned directly, Julian Good Sauerwein, legal advisor to the Senate Judiciary Committee's Internal Security Subcommittee, stated that Goleniewski demanded to hear his testimony about his origin and kinship with the Russian imperial family first, and only then was he going to testify about Soviet agents, and the Senate considered this unacceptable. On the 30th of September 1964, Goleniewski finally married Ingrid Kampf, who was 9 months pregnant at the time. The wedding according to the Orthodox rite was performed in New York by Archpriest George Grab, the future Bishop Gregory. In the documents, Goleniewski entered the personal data of the legitimate Alexei Nikolaevich Romanov, such as name, names of parents, along with the date and place of birth. As well as this, the wedding was attended by 2 women, who were introduced as his sisters Olga and Tatiana. Later, it came to light that Grab had visited Goleniewski's apartment in Queens 5 times before the wedding and had received over $10,000 for the wedding. A scandal emerged when members of New York's Russian diaspora learned that Goleniewski was a Catholic who had left a wife and children behind in Poland, and on top of that his new wife Ingrid was a Protestant. Recollecting on the marriage 30 years later, Grab would claim that he received a telephone call from Goleniewski at 5 o'clock in the morning, who asked him to come urgently. When Grab arrived at Goleniewski's apartment, Ingrid had started to have contractions, and Goleniewski presented the priest with a marriage certificate with the name of Alexei Nikolaevich Romanov and documentation confirming Michael Goleniewski's change of name to Alexei Romanov. After handing these documents to Grab, Goleniewski asked him to conduct a wedding service. Feeling unable to refuse this request, Grab agreed to do so. Following this, Ingrid was taken urgently to a hospital in Manhasset, where she gave birth to a girl, who was named Tatiana. However, Grab was forbidden to conduct the baptism of Goleniewski's daughter. With no evidence of the survival of the Russian imperial family, and the details of Alexei Nikolaevich written in the documents, the marriage could not be valid, and Grab faced ostracism. After some time, Goleniewski's daughter Tatiana was diagnosed with appendicitis, while his allowance from the CIA was reduced to a modest $500 per month. As well as this, Goleniewski was living in the U.S. without health insurance, and as a result was unable to pay for medical care. Michael and Ingrid struggled to raise funds to pay for medical services before doctors finally saved their daughter, with a small level of financial support eventually being provided at the 11th hour by official U.S. government sources. Goleniewski viewed both the lateness and modesty of this support as an insult and demanded nearly $10,000 from the CIA in compensation, which he claimed was a necessary sum to rehabilitate his daughter. Later, Goleniewski's marriage to Kampf was dissolved and he lost contact with both her and their daughter Tatiana. After losing contact with her father, Tatiana repeatedly wrote to Grab with a request to help her find her estranged father, but Grab refused to assist her, explaining that he no longer wished to cross paths with Goleniewski. On the 23rd of December 1964, CIA polygraph examiner Cleve Baxter, who returning viewers may recall as having conducted a lie detector test on Eugenia Smith, appeared on the CBS television show To Tell the Truth. Here, Baxter supported Goleniewski's claims, referring to the alleged results of an examination he carried out with him. Despite Baxter's convictions, no results were made public, and on the 20th of January 1965, the New York Daily News published an article in which the former head of the Information and Analysis Department, Herman Kimsey, demanded that the CIA provide the results of the examination in order to remove all questions and doubts. As well as this, he also believed that the resigned Allen or his successor, John McCone, should break the silence on Goleniewski's claims to be Alexei, but the CIA leadership again refused to comment on Kimsey's statements. It is assumed that the CIA was not only skeptical of all Goleniewski's statements about his relationship with the Romanovs, but also prevented him from testifying before Congress about his origin. In 1964, the CIA started to renege on its contract with Goleniewski and brief other government departments that he had lost his mind. To avoid further scandal, Goleniewski was dismissed, leaving him with the aforementioned $500 per month allowance. This caused Goleniewski much financial and emotional distress, and he lost his grip on reality, becoming paranoid, and ultimately insane. Goleniewski accused the department of not only not allowing him to tell the truth about his origin, but also leaving him without a means of subsistence. As this scandal came to light, Polish intelligence came to believe that Goleniewski's statements about his royal origin were a deliberate ploy for the public, instigated by the CIA. It is alleged that both the Soviet KGB and the Security Service of the Polish People's Republic had secretly supported left-wing journalists and critics who sought to discredit the CIA and accuse them of conducting their operations based on information provided by an impostor, a fraudster, and a person whose mental health could be called into question. A further blow to Goleniewski's reputation was dealt by the publication of a series of articles in 1965 which covered the story of the family that Goleniewski left behind. Polish intelligence continued in their endeavors to bring Goleniewski to justice, and according to Franciszek Goleniewski, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Poland, the Security Service of the Polish People's Republic even tried to eliminate Goleniewski but was unable to do so. However, several employees of the Polish Residency in New York sent anonymous letters to U.S. senators and journalists criticizing Goleniewski as a crook and impostor. Following this, the publication of an anonymous report in the New York Times about the CIA's refusal to comment on all of Goleniewski's statements was viewed as a small victory by Polish intelligence. Goleniewski spent the rest of his life in Queens, New York, where he lived under the Witness Protection Program, even undergoing plastic surgery. Accusing the special services of simply throwing him out into the street, he continued to write open letters to many authorities and personalities. Among the recipients of these letters were two directors of Central Intelligence, Vice Admiral William Rayborn and his deputy for operations and future successor Richard Helms, U.S. Attorney General Ramsey Clark, the American Civil Liberties Union and even the International Red Cross. Since the 1970s, Goleniewski published the monthly magazine titled Double Eagle, which was dedicated to what it described as the state sovereignty and security of the United States and the survival of Christian civilization. The magazine published anti-Semitic articles related to various conspiracy theories as well as anti-Soviet appeals, accusing many church leaders of working for the KGB. After the Russian Orthodox Church abroad canonized the royal family in 1981, Goleniewski publicly accused the church of betrayal, claiming that it was allegedly stuffed with KGB spies who sought to deny him the legal right to the title of heir to the imperial throne. By 1983, Polish intelligence had ceased observing Goleniewski since there were no serious actions on his part regarding national security issues. For the rest of his life, Goleniewski continued to assert that he was the true heir to the Russian throne, and in 1988, he was awarded the Distinguished Intelligence Medal by the CIA. On the 12th of July 1993, Michael Goleniewski died after a long illness in New York. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoy the content we produce here at Heart for History, please like and subscribe. We would like to thank all of you who have so far subscribed to this channel, as your support is crucial to our ongoing growth and development. If you are a returning viewer who has not yet subscribed, we would be very grateful if you would consider subscribing to our channel, as it would help us enormously in our goal of becoming a full-time channel which produces accessible, high-quality educational content on a more regular basis. If you would like to buy us a coffee, you can find our Buy Me a Coffee link both in the video description as well as on our homepage. As well as this, gratuities can also be made through our PayPal link, which can likewise be found in the video description and on our homepage. Once again, thank you to all those who have subscribed. Please feel free to leave a comment as your feedback is greatly appreciated. Thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.